Kade Zimmerman had lived 32 years without once believing in magic, but the orc woman sleeping under his oldest apple tree made him wonder if he had been wrong about everything. She lay curled on her side in the dappled shade, one arm tucked beneath her head, the other resting across her rounded middle. Her skin was the green of new leaves in spring, and her dark hair spilled across the grass like ink. Small tusks curved up from her lower jaw, barely visible past her parted lips. Her breathing was slow and steady, completely untroubled by the fact that she was trespassing on private land in the middle of the day. Kade stood 10 feet away, pruning shears still in hand, trying to decide what to do. He should wake her, send her on her way. His nearest neighbor was 3 miles down the valley road, and visitors were rare enough that he knew every peddler and traveler by name. This woman was a stranger. More than that, she was an orc, and even here in the border territories where such things were less shocking than in the heartlands, it was unusual to find one alone and unguarded. He should wake her. Instead, he found himself studying the way the light fell across her face, the gentle rise and fall of her chest, the strange peacefulness of the scene. His orchard had not known peace in months. The rot had started in the southeast corner, a creeping death that turned roots to black mush and left the trees hollow and gasping. He had tried everything he knew, everything his father had taught him, everything the traveling plant doctor had suggested before shaking his head and moving on. Nothing worked. The rot spread. Slowly, yes, but inevitably. By next spring he would lose half his trees. By the spring after that, perhaps all of them. The woman stirred. Her eyes opened, and they were amber, bright and clear as honey held up to sunlight. She blinked once, twice, then sat up with no apparent concern that a strange man was watching her sleep in his orchard. "You are awake early," she said. Her voice was low and pleasant, with an accent he could not place. "It is past noon," Kade said. She looked up through the branches at the sky, squinting. "So it is. I meant to rest for only a moment." She stretched her arms above her head, and Kade heard her spine pop. She wore a travel-stained tunic and trousers, both well-made but worn soft with use. A large leather pack lay beside her, and the faint scent of flowers drifted from it. "This is private land," Kade said, though he tried to keep his tone gentle. "I know." She stood, brushing grass from her clothes. She was perhaps 5.5 feet tall, shorter than him by several inches, and built soft rather than hard. Not what he had expected from an orc, though he would have been hard-pressed to say what he had expected. "I am sorry for the trespass. Your trees called to me, my trees." "Yes." She stepped closer to the trunk of the old apple tree and pressed her palm against the bark. Her eyes drifted closed. "They smell like you." Kade blinked. "I do not understand. You have tended these trees for years. Your hands have touched every branch. Your sweat has fed the soil. The trees carry your scent now, woven into their sap." She opened her eyes and looked at him directly, kindly. "It is a good scent, clean and steady, like cedar and honey." He had no idea what to say to that. Heat crept up his neck, and he was grateful for the shade that hid his face. "You have a good nose." "I do." She smiled, and the expression transformed her face, made it radiant. "I am a scent maker, a traveling one. I trade in blossom oils and herb essences. I have been following the fragrance of your orchard for 3 days. 3 days. I camped by the stream to the east 2 nights ago, then in the meadow to the south last night. Each morning I thought I would move on, but the scent kept pulling me closer." She tilted her head, studying him with those bright amber eyes. "I thought perhaps I would meet the orchardist who tends his trees so well, and here you are." "Here I am," Kade agreed, feeling slightly dazed. "I am Kade Zimmerman. Zara Pembroke." She offered her hand, and after a moment's hesitation he took it. Her palm was warm and calloused, her grip firm. "I am pleased to meet you, Kade Zimmerman. You have a beautiful orchard." "I do." The words came out more bitter than he intended. "Or I did. It is dying." Her smile faded. She turned back to the tree, pressing both hands against it now, her expression intent. "Where?" "Southeast corner. 20 trees so far, maybe more. Root rot. I cannot stop it." Zara was already moving, walking between the rows with purpose, her pack forgotten beneath the tree. Kade followed, still carrying his shears, wondering what she thought she could see that he had not already examined 100 times. She stopped at the edge of the infected zone. The trees here still looked healthy to the casual eye, their leaves green and full, but Kade knew better. In 2 weeks they would begin to wilt. In a month they would be dead. Zara knelt and dug her fingers into the soil, lifting a handful to her nose. She inhaled deeply, then let the dirt sift through her fingers. "There," she said quietly. "That is the scent." "What scent?" "Decay." "But not clean decay. This is wrong, sour." She stood and moved to the nearest tree, running her hands over the bark, then pressing her ear against the trunk. "How long have you known?" 4 months. It started just after the last harvest. And you have tried everything. Cutting away the infected roots, changing the soil, prayers for all the good that did. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I even tried digging a trench to stop the spread. It just went under." Zara straightened, her expression troubled. "This is not a natural rot." The plant doctor said the same, but he did not know what it was or how to stop it. "May I stay?" The question came suddenly, earnestly. "I would like to examine your orchard more carefully. I have worked with many plants, many trees. Perhaps I can help." Kade looked at her, this strange orc woman who had fallen asleep in his orchard because his trees smelled like him. Common sense said to refuse. He did not know her. She could be anyone, want anything. But common sense had not saved his orchard. Common sense had watched his life's work rot away and offered nothing but empty sympathy. "You can stay," he said. "I have a guest cottage. It is small, but it is clean and dry." Her smile returned, smaller this time but no less warm. "Thank you. I promise I will earn my keep." The cottage had been his grandmother's once, back when the orchard was large enough to need seasonal workers. Now it sat empty most of the year, a single room with a narrow bed, a stove, a table, and 2 chairs. Kade had not been inside in months, and he half expected to find it thick with dust and cobwebs. But the windows were intact and the roof was sound, and Zara seemed genuinely pleased as she set her pack on the table. "This is perfect," she said. "Better than sleeping on the ground. I will bring you bedding, and food if you need it. I have food, but I would not say no to fresh water. There is a pump behind the main house. Help yourself whenever you like." He hesitated in the doorway. "Why are you doing this?" Zara looked up from unpacking her bag. Inside he glimpsed dozens of small glass bottles, each filled with liquid in varying shades of amber and gold. "Doing what?" "Offering to help. You do not know me. This is not your problem." She considered the question seriously, her hand stilling on a bottle. "I am a scent maker," she said finally. "I spend my life learning plants, understanding them. When I encounter a problem I have not seen before, I want to solve it. That is one reason." She set the bottle down carefully. "The other reason is that your orchard deserves to live. I can smell how much love you have poured into it. That kind of devotion should not be wasted." Kade's chest tightened. He nodded once, not trusting his voice, and left before she could see how much her words affected him. That evening he brought her blankets and a pillow, a loaf of bread and a jar of last year's apple butter. She accepted them with thanks and invited him to sit. He meant to refuse, but somehow he found himself in the chair across from her, watching as she sliced the bread with a small knife and spread the amber preserves thick. "Tell me about your orchard," she said, handing him a slice. "When did you plant it?" "My grandfather planted the first trees 60 years ago. My father added more. I have been caring for them since I was 12, on my own since I was 22. He took a bite of bread. The butter was still good, sweet and rich. 140 trees, 12 varieties. I know everyone by heart. That is a long time to love something. Yes. And in all that time you have never seen this rot before. Never. We have had blights, yes, aphids and borers and late frosts, but nothing like this, nothing that felt so wrong." He met her eyes. "You said it was not natural. What did you mean?" Zara was quiet for a long moment, chewing thoughtfully. "I have traveled through many lands," she said at last. "I have seen plants sicken in many ways. Most illness comes from too much water, too little sun, poor soil, pests. Those problems have a certain smell, clean even when they are deadly." She leaned forward, her expression intent. "What I smelled today was different. It smelled like rot, yes, but also like metal, like something burning. It made my teeth ache." "Metal and burning," Kade repeated. "I do not smell anything like that. Human noses are less sensitive, but I think if you went to the worst of the infected trees and broke open a root, you would see something strange, something that does not belong. Then I will do that, tomorrow. May I come with you, if you like?" She smiled. "I would like that very much." They worked in silence for a while, eating bread and butter as the evening light turned gold outside the windows. Kade found himself stealing glances at her when he thought she was not looking. She had a mobile, expressive face, and she hummed softly under her breath as she ate. It was a comfortable silence, easy in a way that surprised him. He had been alone for so long that he had forgotten what this felt like. "Why do you travel?" he asked abruptly. Zara looked up, startled. "Pardon?" "You said you are a traveling scent maker. Why not settle somewhere? Open a shop?" "I did once, in a town 3 years north of here. I rented a small storefront and sold my oils and perfumes." She set down her bread. "People liked my work well enough, but they did not like me. I was the only orc in 50 miles. Children stared. Adults whispered. One night someone threw a stone through my window with a note that told me to leave." Her voice was calm, matter-of-fact. "So I left. Traveling is easier. I go where I please, stay as long as I am welcome, move on when I am not." "That must be lonely." "Sometimes." She met his gaze, and something passed between them, some recognition. "But loneliness is better than being hated." Kade looked down at his hands, at the calluses and scars from years of pruning and grafting. "I am sorry that happened to you." "It was not your doing." "No, but I am still sorry." She reached across the table and touched the back of his hand just once, just briefly. "Thank you." He left soon after, walking back through the darkening orchard to his house. The night was warm and clear, and the stars were beginning to appear overhead. He thought about what Zara had said, about metal and burning, about her shop and the stone through the window, about loneliness. His orchard smelled like him, she had said. He wondered what he smelled like to her. Cedar and honey, clean and steady. It was a strange compliment, but it warmed him nonetheless. The next morning dawned cool and bright. Kade rose early, as he always did, and worked through his morning chores with unusual speed. He fed the chickens, checked the irrigation channels, inspected the nearest rows of trees. When he looked up, Zara was walking toward him across the dewy grass, her hair pulled back in a thick braid, her pack slung over one shoulder. "Good morning," she called. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" "Very well. Your orchard is peaceful." She fell into step beside him. "Shall we examine the roots?" They walked to the worst of the infected area, to a tree that had died 3 weeks ago and stood skeletal against the blue sky. Kade took a shovel from the tool shed and began to dig. The soil came away easily, too easily. Healthy roots would have gripped the earth tight. These crumbled at the slightest touch. Zara knelt beside the hole, peering in. Deeper. He dug deeper. The rot was worse below, the roots black and slimy. The smell made him gag. Beside him, Zara leaned closer, her nose almost touching the foul mess. She reached out and broke off a piece of rotted root, holding it up to the light. "There," she said quietly. "Do you see?" Kade squinted. At first he saw only decay. Then, as Zara turned the root, he saw something else. A faint shimmer, almost like oil on water but darker. It seemed to pulse in the sunlight. "What is that?" "I do not know, but it is not natural." She wrapped the root carefully in a cloth and tucked it into her pack. "I need to test it. May I use your kitchen?" "Of course." They spent the rest of the morning in Kade's kitchen, which quickly transformed into something between a laboratory and an apothecary's shop. Zara unpacked bottles and vials, mortars and pestles, tiny scales and measuring spoons. She ground the rotted root to paste, mixed it with various liquids, held the results up to the light and sniffed them carefully. Kade watched, fascinated despite himself. He had never seen anyone work with such focused intensity. "It is a fungus," Zara said finally. "But not like any fungus I have encountered. It feeds on living wood, yes, but it also taints the soil around it. That is why your trench did not work. The spores are in the earth now, waiting. Can it be stopped? Perhaps, if we can kill the fungus without killing the trees." She tapped her fingers against the table, thinking. There are oils that fight fungus. Neem and thyme, clove and cinnamon, but they must be strong enough to penetrate the soil and mild enough not to burn the roots. "You have those oils." "Some. Not enough." She looked up at him, her amber eyes serious. "I would need to make more. That takes time and money. The base ingredients are not cheap and the distillation process is delicate." "How much time?" 2 weeks to make what we need. Perhaps 3. And money." She named a sum that made his stomach drop. It was not a fortune, but it was more than he had. The rot had already cost him this year's harvest, and his savings were nearly gone. He had enough to see him through the winter if he was careful, but not enough for this. "I do not have it," he said quietly. Zara's expression did not change. "Then we will find another way." "What other way?" She was quiet for a long moment, her gaze distant. Then she stood and walked to the window, looking out at the orchard. "Your trees are beautiful, Kade. Even sick, they are beautiful. And in spring, when they bloom, I imagine they are extraordinary." "They are. Blossom oil," she said suddenly, turning back to him. "Apple blossom oil is rare, delicate. People pay well for it, especially in the southern cities where apple trees do not grow." She crossed back to the table, her expression animated. "If we can keep your healthy trees alive through the winter, if we can make sure they bloom strong next spring, I can distill the blossoms. We sell the oil and it pays for the fungicide. It pays for everything." Kade stared at her. "You would do that? Risk your time, your skills, on a plan that might not work?" "It will work." She said it with such certainty that he almost believed her. "Your trees will bloom, Kade, I promise you that." "Why?" The question burst out of him. "Why do you care so much? You do not know me." "This orchard means nothing to you." Zara reached out and took his hand. Her palm was warm, her grip strong. "It means something to you," she said simply. "That is enough." Kade looked down at their joined hands, at the contrast of her green skin against his tan. He thought about the stone through her window, the whispers and stares, the loneliness she carried with such quiet grace. He thought about his orchard, dying by inches, about his grandfather and father, the legacy they had left him, about the woman standing before him, offering him hope when he had none left. "All right," he said. "We will try." Her smile was brilliant. They began the work that very afternoon. Zara showed Kade how to mix a mild fungicide from what ingredients she had on hand, enough to treat a few trees. It was not a cure, she warned, but it would slow the rot while they prepared the stronger solution. They worked side by side, measuring and mixing, then carried buckets of the mixture out to the orchard. Kade dug carefully around the bases of the trees while Zara poured the solution over the exposed roots. The process was slow and painstaking. Each tree took nearly an hour. By sunset, they had treated only 5, and Kade's back ached from bending and digging. "This will take weeks," he said, straightening with a grimace. "Yes," Zara agreed. She looked tired but satisfied. "But it will work, you will see." They fell into a routine over the following days. Kade rose early and completed his regular chores while Zara worked in the cottage, distilling and blending and testing. Mid-morning, they would meet in the orchard and treat more trees. Afternoons were spent on maintenance, pruning away dead wood, clearing the irrigation channels, preparing the land for winter. Evenings, they took their meals together, sometimes at Kade's table, sometimes at hers, talking until the stars came out. Kade found himself looking forward to those evenings most of all. Zara was easy to talk to, curious about everything. She asked him about his childhood, his parents, his grandparents. She wanted to know how he had learned to graft trees, what his favorite variety of apple was, whether he had ever wanted to do anything else with his life. "No," he said honestly. "This is all I have ever wanted. To tend the orchard, to watch it grow, to harvest the fruit and know that my work fed people. It is a simple life, but it is mine." "It is not simple," Zara said quietly. "It is honest and good and hard. That is not the same as simple." He smiled at that. "What about you? Did you always want to be a scent maker?" "Not always. When I was young, I wanted to be a warrior." She laughed at his surprised expression. "I was terrible at it, too soft, too slow. My mother despaired of me. But I loved plants and I had a good nose, so she apprenticed me to the clan's herbalist instead. That is where I learned to distill oils and mix essences. After she died, I left the clan and traveled south. I have been traveling ever since. You miss your clan, sometimes. But I do not fit there anymore. I am too used to solitude now, too used to moving." She looked at him across the table, her amber eyes catching the lamplight. "Do you ever get lonely, Kade, living out here by yourself?" "Yes," he admitted, "but I have the orchard. That is usually enough." "Usually." "Usually?" Something passed between them then, some understanding too fragile to name. Kade felt his pulse quicken. He was falling, he realized, falling for this strange, kind, brilliant woman who had appeared in his orchard like a gift. The knowledge should have frightened him. Instead, it felt inevitable, like the changing of seasons. 10 days after Zara's arrival, Kade woke to find frost on the ground. Autumn was giving way to winter, and he felt a flicker of panic. They had treated perhaps 40 trees, but there were still dozens more at risk. The rot had slowed but not stopped. If the cold set in before they finished, the trees would go dormant and they would lose months of work. He found Zara already in the orchard, kneeling beside one of the treated trees. She had her hands pressed to its trunk, her eyes closed. When she heard him approach, she looked up with a smile. "Good morning. Come feel this." He knelt beside her. "Feel what?" "The tree. Put your hands here." She guided his hands to the bark. "Do you feel it?" At first he felt nothing. Then slowly he became aware of a faint vibration, a subtle warmth. Life. The tree was alive, truly alive in a way it had not been for months. "The treatment is working," Zara said, her voice full of quiet joy. "It is slow, but it is working." Kade's throat tightened. He pressed his forehead to the trunk, overwhelmed with relief. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you." Zara's hand found his shoulder, warm and steady. "We are not done yet, but we are winning." They worked harder over the following weeks, racing against the winter. Zara brewed fungicide in larger batches. and they developed a system that let them treat more trees in less time. The nights grew longer and colder, and snow dusted the mountains to the north, but the orchard held on. One evening, as they sat together in Kade's kitchen sharing a pot of stew, Zara said, "I need to go to town tomorrow." Kade looked up, surprised. The nearest town was a half-day's ride south. "What for?" "Supplies. I am running low on several base oils, and I need more glass bottles if I am to distill the blossoms in spring." She hesitated. "Will you come with me?" "Do you want me to?" "Yes. I do not like going alone. People stare less when I am with someone." Kade thought of the stone through her window, the whispers and cruelty. Anger flickered in his chest, sharp and protective. "I will come." They set out the next morning on horseback, Kade on his old gelding and Zara on a sturdy mare she had purchased from a peddler the week before. The ride was pleasant despite the cold, the road winding through forests ablaze with autumn color. They talked little, but the silence was comfortable. The town of Ashford was small but prosperous, its streets lined with shops and market stalls. Kade had been coming here since he was a boy, and he knew most of the merchants by name. But he saw the town differently now, through Zara's eyes. He noticed the stares, the way conversations stopped when they passed, the way mothers pulled their children closer. Zara seemed unbothered. She walked with her head high, her expression calm, but Kade saw the tension in her shoulders. He moved closer, a silent presence at her side. They found the apothecary first, a narrow shop that smelled of herbs and beeswax. The owner, an elderly woman named Marta, greeted Kade warmly before her gaze slid to Zara. Her expression shuddered. "Who is this?" Marta asked, her tone carefully neutral. "This is Zara Pembroke. She is helping me save my orchard." Kade kept his voice steady. "She needs supplies." Zara stepped forward and handed Marta a list. The old woman scanned it, her eyebrows rising. "This is quite a lot. I can pay." Zara set a small purse on the counter. Marta counted the coins carefully, then nodded. "Give me an hour, I will have everything ready." They left the shop and wandered through the market while they waited. Kade bought fresh bread and cheese, smoked sausage and apples. Zara lingered at a stall selling ribbons and cloth, her fingers trailing over a bolt of blue fabric. "You like that?" Kade asked. She shrugged. "It is pretty, but I have no use for it." He bought 3 yards anyway while she was looking at something else, and tucked it into his pack before she could protest. They were heading back to the apothecary when a man stepped into their path. He was young, perhaps 25, with the broad shoulders and rough hands of a laborer. His face was flushed and he smelled of ale. "What is an orc doing here?" he demanded, glaring at Zara. Kade moved between them. "She is with me. We are just passing through." "I do not care who she is with. She does not belong here." "We are leaving," Kade said evenly. "There is no need for trouble. I will decide if there is trouble." The man spat on the ground near Zara's feet. "Go back where you came from, monster." Kade felt his temper flare. "Watch your mouth, or what?" "You going to defend your orc whore?" The words hung in the air, ugly and deliberate. Kade's fists clenched. Before he could move, Zara's hand closed around his wrist. "Let it go," she said quietly. "He is drunk and stupid. It does not matter. It matters to me. I know." She squeezed his wrist, her amber eyes steady on his. "But fighting him will not change anything. It will only make things worse." Kade forced himself to breathe, to unclench his fists. She was right. He knew she was right, but the helplessness burned in his throat. The drunk man laughed. "That is right. Listen to your pet. Run along now." Zara tugged Kade's arm, and he let her lead him away. They collected the supplies from Marta, who handed over the package without comment, and rode out of town in silence. They were a mile down the road before Zara spoke. "Thank you for not hitting him. I wanted to, I know. That is why I am thanking you." Kade glanced at her. She looked tired now, the calm mask slipping. "Does that happen often, often enough? How do you stand it?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I remind myself that their words say more about them than they do about me. I remind myself that I am not what they think I am, and I keep moving." She looked at him, and he saw the weariness in her eyes, the years of small cruelties and large ones. "It is easier when I have someone at my side." "You will always have me at your side," Kade said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "For as long as you want." Zara's breath caught. She stared at him, her amber eyes wide and bright. "Kade, I mean it. You have given me my orchard back. You have given me hope. I do not care what anyone else says. You belong here." He swallowed hard. "With me. If you want." She reined in her horse, and he stopped beside her. The road stretched empty before them, the forest pressing close on either side. Zara reached out and cupped his face with one hand, her palm warm against his cheek. "I want," she whispered. Then she leaned in and kissed him. It was a soft kiss, tentative and sweet. Kade closed his eyes and let himself fall into it, into her. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling. "I fell for you the day I found you asleep under my tree," Kade admitted. "I fell for you when you offered me your guest cottage without asking for anything in return." Zara laughed, the sound bright and free. "We are both fools, the best kind of fools." They rode home side by side, hands linked between their horses, and the world felt larger and brighter than it had in years. Winter settled over the orchard, slow and cold. Snow fell and melted, fell and stayed. Kade and Zara finished treating the last of the trees in mid-November, working through frozen ground and biting wind. The rot had been arrested, though it would take time to know if the trees would truly recover. Zara moved into the main house without discussion, her belongings gradually migrating from the cottage until her bottles and vials lined Kade's kitchen shelves, and her clothes hung beside his. They fell into an easy domesticity, cooking and cleaning and working side by side. On the coldest nights they huddled together before the fire, wrapped in blankets, talking or reading or simply being together. Kade had never been happier. Zara began planning for the spring distillation. She sketched out designs for a larger still, calculated how many blossoms she would need, estimated yields and prices. Kade watched her work, marveling at her mind, her focus, her unwavering belief that they would succeed. "Tell me about apple blossom oil," he said one evening. Zara looked up from her notes. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. I have grown apples my whole life, but I have never thought of the blossoms as anything but beautiful." She smiled. "They are beautiful, but they are also precious. Apple blossoms bloom for only a few weeks, and the scent is delicate. It takes thousands of blossoms to produce even a small bottle of oil." She tapped her pencil against her lips. "But the oil is extraordinary. It smells of spring and hope and new beginnings. It is used in perfumes, in healing salves, in rituals. People will pay dearly for it. And you think we can make enough? I know we can. Your orchard is large, and if the trees bloom as I expect, we will have more than enough." She reached across the table and took his hand. "Trust me, I do." As winter deepened, Kade found himself thinking about the future in ways he had not before. He had always assumed he would live and die in his orchard, alone but content. Now he imagined something different. He imagined Zara beside him, not just for one season but for all seasons. He imagined growing old together, tending the trees, making their oils and perfumes, building a life. He wanted to ask her to stay, permanently. But fear held him back. She was a traveler by nature, used to freedom and movement. What if she grew restless? What if the orchard became a cage instead of a home? What if he asked and she said no? The question burned in him through December and January. He tried to be patient, to let things unfold naturally, but the uncertainty gnawed at him. One night in early February, as they lay in bed listening to the wind howl outside, Zara said, "I have been thinking." "About what?" "About spring, about the distillation." She was quiet for a moment. "About what happens after." Kade's heart clenched. "What do you mean?" "I am a traveler, Kade. I have never stayed anywhere longer than a season, but I have been here for 5 months now, and I do not want to leave." She rolled onto her side to face him, her amber eyes searching his in the darkness. "I want to stay with you, if you will have me." Relief flooded through him, so intense it made him dizzy. "I will have you for as long as you will stay." "Forever, then." She kissed him slow and deep. "I want forever." "Then forever it is." They lay tangled together, warm and safe, while the winter storm raged outside. Kade held her close and marveled at his luck. He had found her asleep in his orchard, this strange and wonderful woman, and she had saved him in more ways than one. Spring came late that year, but when it came, it was glorious. The snow melted, the days grew longer, and the first green shoots appeared on the apple trees. Kade watched them anxiously, hardly daring to hope, but Zara was confident. "They will bloom," she said every time he worried. "Wait and see," and she was right. In mid-April, the first buds appeared. By the end of the month, the entire orchard was a sea of white and pink blossoms. The air was thick with fragrance, sweet and heady. Kade walked through the rows with tears in his eyes. His trees had survived. They were alive and blooming, more beautiful than ever. "They smell like you," Zara said, standing beside him beneath the oldest tree. "I thought you said they smelled like me before." "They do, but now they also smell like hope." She turned to him, her face radiant. "Are you ready to begin?" They worked from dawn until dusk, harvesting the blossoms at their peak. Zara had set up her still in the barn, a complex arrangement of copper pots and glass tubes. She showed Kade how to pack the blossoms into the still, how to control the heat, how to collect the precious droplets of oil that condensed in the receiving flask. The process was slow and exacting. They could distill only small batches at a time, and each batch took hours. But the result was worth it. The oil was pale gold and impossibly fragrant, capturing the very essence of spring. Kade held a bottle up to the light and felt a swell of pride. This was his orchard, his labor, transformed into something rare and precious. They filled 20 bottles by mid-May, when the last of the blossoms had fallen. Zara packed them carefully in a wooden crate lined with straw. According to her calculations, they would fetch enough to pay for all the fungicide and still leave a tidy profit. "Where will we sell them?" Kade asked. "There is a merchant in Ashford who deals in rare goods. I have sold to him before. He will give us a fair price." "When do you want to go?" "Soon. But first, there is something I want to do." She looked at him, suddenly shy. "The town is holding a blossom festival next week. I thought we might attend, together." Kade understood what she was asking. The festival would be crowded and people would see them together. They would know that he and Zara were more than business partners. There would be talk, perhaps hostility, but there would also be a statement. "This is who we are. This is what we choose." "I would like that," Kade said. The festival was held in Ashford's Central Square, a riot of color and sound. There were booths selling food and crafts, musicians playing lively tunes, children running and laughing. Kade and Zara arrived mid-morning with their crate of oil and set up at a booth near the fountain. People stared, of course. But Zara seemed unbothered, arranging the bottles in an attractive display, smiling at anyone who stopped to look. Kade stood beside her, his presence a silent declaration. The merchant Zara had mentioned arrived within the hour, a portly man with sharp eyes and a shrewd smile. He examined the bottles carefully, uncorking one to sniff the contents. His eyebrows rose. "This is exceptional work," he said. "Where did you source the blossoms?" "From my orchard," Kade said. "And the distillation, mine," Zara said. The merchant looked between them, his expression speculative. "I will take all of it. Name your price." Zara named a figure that made Kade's eyes widen. The merchant did not even haggle. He counted out the coins on the spot and handed over a card. "If you can produce more, I will buy it. This quality is rare." "We will have more next year," Zara promised. As the merchant walked away, Kade turned to Zara. "Did we just make enough to save the orchard?" "We made enough to save the orchard, buy more supplies, and live comfortably for a year." She grinned. "We did it, Kade." He pulled her into his arms, right there in the middle of the festival, and kissed her. There were gasps, a few muttered comments, but there was also applause. When they broke apart, Kade saw Marta the apothecary watching them with a small, approving smile. The rest of the day passed in a blur of sales and conversations. Several people stopped to ask about the oil, and Zara explained the process with patience and enthusiasm. A few asked about their partnership, and Kade answered honestly, "She saved my orchard and my life." By evening they had sold all but 3 bottles, which Zara insisted on keeping. "For us," she said, "to remember." They stayed for the closing ceremony, a lighting of lanterns that sent hundreds of glowing lights into the sky. Kade held Zara's hand and watched the lanterns rise, feeling a contentment so deep it was almost painful. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For falling asleep in my orchard. For staying, for giving me everything." Zara leaned her head against his shoulder. "Your trees called to me. How could I not answer?" Summer arrived, hot and bright. The orchard thrived, the treated trees growing strong and healthy. Kade and Zara settled into the rhythms of farm life, working and resting, planning and dreaming. They talked about the future constantly now, about what they would plant next, what new oils they might try, how they would expand their business. In July, Kade proposed. He did it simply, without fuss, on an evening when they were sitting beneath the oldest apple tree watching the sun set. He had no ring, but he offered her his grandmother's locket, a silver oval engraved with apple blossoms. "Will you marry me?" he asked. "Will you stay here in this orchard that smells like us and build a life with me?" Zara's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They were married in September in the orchard with only Marta and a few neighbors as witnesses. It was a small ceremony, but it was theirs. Zara wore a dress made from the blue fabric Kade had bought in Ashford, and she carried a bouquet of late-season wildflowers. Kade wore his best shirt and could not stop smiling. When the priest asked if anyone objected, there was only silence. And when they kissed as husband and wife, the applause was genuine and warm. That evening, as they lay in bed in the house that was now fully theirs, Zara said, "I never thought I would have this. A home, a partner, a future." "Neither did I," Kade admitted, "but I am glad we found it together." "Your trees brought me here," Zara said, smiling. "They smelled like you and I could not resist. Then I owe my trees everything." The years that followed were good ones. The orchard continued to flourish, and each spring they distilled more apple blossom oil. Their reputation grew, and merchants came from across the region to buy their products. Kade and Zara expanded slowly, planting new trees, experimenting with new varieties, creating new blends and essences. They were happy. Not in a storybook way, not without challenges or hard days, but in the real, deep way that comes from choosing each other every day, from working side by side, from building something together. 3 years after their marriage, Zara told Kade she was pregnant. He wept with joy and immediately began planning a nursery. Their son was born in the spring during blossom time, and they named him Henrik. He had his mother's amber eyes and his father's steady hands. 2 years later, a second son arrived. They named him Porter, and he was as loud and energetic as his brother was quiet and thoughtful. The boys grew up running through the orchard, learning the trees, helping with the harvest. Kade taught them to graft and prune, while Zara taught them about plants and scents. When Henrik was 6, he asked his mother why her skin was green. "Because I am an orc," Zara said simply. "Is that bad?" "Some people think so, but it is not bad, it is just different." "I think it is pretty," Henrik said seriously. "Like the leaves in spring." Zara hugged him tight, her eyes bright with tears. The orchard became a haven, not just for Kade and Zara, but for others. Word spread that the Zimmerman orchard welcomed everyone, regardless of race or background. Travelers stopped to rest, traders came to do business, and slowly, cautiously, a few other orcs began to visit. Zara welcomed them with open arms, offering them food and shelter and friendship. One autumn, a young orc woman arrived with a baby on her hip and desperation in her eyes. "I heard this was a safe place," she said. "It is," Zara assured her. "Stay as long as you need." The woman stayed 3 months, working in the orchard in exchange for room and board. When she left, she was smiling and strong, ready to face the world again. "We should do more of this," Zara said to Kade one night. "Open the orchard to those who need it. Build something that lasts beyond us." "Then we will," Kade agreed. "We will make this place a home for anyone who needs one." And they did. Over the years, the Zimmerman orchard became known as a sanctuary, a place where species did not matter, where kindness was the only currency. They built more cottages, hired workers, expanded the distillery. The business thrived, but it was always about more than profit. It was about community, about proving that different people could live and work together in harmony. Kade and Zara grew older, their hair turning gray, their hands growing gnarled. But they never stopped working, never stopped dreaming. They watched their sons grow into fine young men, watched the orchard flourish, watched their small haven become a beacon. One spring evening, 20 years after they had first met, Kade and Zara walked together through the blooming orchard. The air was thick with fragrance, and the trees were heavy with white and pink blossoms. Henrik and Porter were managing the distillery now, and the sound of their laughter drifted through the evening air. "You remember the day I found you sleeping under this tree?" Kade asked, stopping beneath the oldest apple. "How could I forget?" Zara leaned against the trunk, her eyes soft with memory. "I told you the trees smelled like you. They still do, or maybe I smell like them now. I can never tell the difference. Does it matter?" "No." Kade took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "Not even a little." They stood in silence, breathing in the scent of blossoms, listening to the rustle of leaves and the distant voices of their sons. The orchard stretched around them, alive and thriving, a testament to everything they had built together. "I am glad I fell asleep here," Zara said softly. "So am I." "Do you think the trees knew that they were bringing us together?" Kade smiled. "I like to think so. I like to think they called to you because they knew I needed you. We needed each other." "Yes, we did." The sun set slowly, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Kade and Zara stood beneath their tree, hand in hand, and watched the light fade. Around them, the orchard whispered in the evening breeze, carrying the scent of apples and blossoms and home. They had built something beautiful here, something lasting. And it had all started with a woman asleep beneath an apple tree, drawn by a scent that spoke of cedar and honey, of steadiness and love. The trees had called to her, and she had answered. And in answering, she had given them both everything they never knew they needed. As the first stars appeared overhead, Zara turned to Kade and kissed him, soft and sweet. "I love you," she said. "I love you too." He held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, which smelled of apple blossoms and home. Always. The orchard settled into night, peaceful and content. And in the darkness, the trees stood sentinel, their roots deep in the earth, their branches reaching toward the sky. They had witnessed everything, the struggle and the triumph, the fear and the hope, the love that had saved them all. And if trees could be satisfied, these trees were satisfied. They had brought two lonely souls together, and in doing so, had ensured their own survival and the flourishing of generations to come. The story of the Zimmerman orchard would be told for years, passed down through children and grandchildren, a tale of love and perseverance and the strange magic that sometimes grows when you least expect it. But for Kade and Zara, it was simply their life. Their beautiful, improbable, perfect life. And they would not have changed a single moment of it.